Hello guys, welcome to another class. Today we are going to be looking at the edit menu, how we can actually work with the edit menus. I'm going to be creating a couple of a couple of objects. Let's start with a circle, a box. Let's do this polygon. Let's have all three. What else do we have? What can we add? Let's add the text. Let's just say arc, or arch, whichever one. Let's make it bigger. Yeah, so we have these four things, interesting stuff. Let's duplicate this one, pressing Ctrl D, and let's just hit a color for this one. Let's just have it like this. For this one, let's give it a different color. For arc as a text, yeah, it should be black, maybe bold. We're just trying to have things on this place so we can populate it. Let's give this yellow. So we have a couple of objects right now. So let's just select one of them and let's go to edit menu. Now the reason why we are doing this is because we want to have a lot of these things active. So when nothing is selected and nothing is there, you might not find a lot of options active in the edit menu. So let's have this, for example. We're going to be working with all these shapes or some of these objects to show us what the edit menu does. Okay, the first thing under the edit menu is the undo, right? So you see the undo, the redo, and the repeat there. And you notice one thing. In each tool or in each menu or sub-menu, we have like a line there. That line kind of like separates similar tools from each other, right? So whenever you see a line, you know that these tools kind of like have some similarities. So back to the edit menu, we have the Ctrl-Z, which is for undoing stuff that you've done. And we have the Ctrl-Shift-Z, which is for redoing what you've previously undone. And then we have repeat, which is to repeat an action. So for undo, all you need to do is press your command and Ctrl or Command Z, and it removes the last thing you just did. You want to bring it back, you hold Ctrl, Shift, and then Z, and it brings it back. It redoes the action. So to undo, you press Ctrl Z. To redo, you press Ctrl, Shift, Z, and it brings it back, right? It brings you forward. And then the last one is repeat. Repeat means to repeat an action you perform. So for example, if just like I gave this one yellow, if I select this one and press Ctrl R, it's going to repeat that action there. If I select this one and press Ctrl R, it's going to repeat the action. So it keeps repeating your previous action. If I make this one smaller and I select all three of these ones and I press Ctrl R, it's going to reduce them by the same size that we did this. So it's practically the same. If I delete an object and select another one and press Ctrl R, it's still the same way of saying delete it, right? The only thing you cannot do with your repeat is to create new objects. For example, you cannot create a circle and say Ctrl R to repeat that. You cannot do that, but you can do it for most other actions that are very, very important. So instead of having to repeat, instead of having to go and click, you could select, you could always repeat an action if the need be. The next one under there is your cut. Right, so cut is practically just take something out here and hold it in the clipboard in the memory. So once you do Ctrl X, which is a shortcut, it cuts that object and holds it in memory. Now in CorelDraw, when you cut an object and holds it in memory in the clipboard, when you paste that object, it retains by default, it retains the same position. So that is for cut. When you want to paste an object, all you have to do is press your Ctrl V. So you go there, you see that we have copy, and we have copy properties we have paste, which is basic. So when you click on this or press Ctrl V, it pastes. And the good thing about CorelDraw is when it copies or cuts an object, it actually recognizes or holds both the positional information about the object, like where the object is positioned, the X and Y position of that object. So when it's pasting the object right away, it pastes it in the same position. It holds that position information and it pastes it on the same place. Now, if you need it to paste in a different location, all you have to do is select the object, and when you want to paste it, you hold Shift before you. So you do Ctrl Shift V to paste. But let's go there. Let's use a copy option to do that. Now, just like I said, cutting an object or copying an object they are similar. One leaves the object and just makes an instance, copies an instance and holds it in clipboard. That's a copy. When you copy an object, it simply takes an instance of the object and holds it in the clipboard. It leaves the original one. It keeps an instance, a duplicate in the clipboard. When you cut an object, it takes the original object off your screen and holds it in the clipboard. So right now we have copied this object. When we paste it, it pastes in the same location. And so if you don't have an idea, you might think it has not pasted until you maybe push this one out and you realize that you have two objects of the same size in the same position before, right? So for us not to get confused, you can always use the other option, which is called the paste in view, right? So for the paste in view, all you need to do is to do Control Shift and V. So when you do that, it pastes the object, but it shifts it out to a particular area on the screen where you can really see, or where you can actually see what you've pasted. So if you don't like CorelDraw pasting on the same exact spot that you copied an object and you want it to paste in a place you can see it, you can always use your Control Shift V. It's paste in view. We have another paste option which is called paste special. This one works for file formats that are not so popular in CorelDraw. I mean, things that are outside CorelDraw that is not naturally supported by the software. So stuff like Word documents, Excel sheets, some kind of pictures, stuff like that. You want to paste them, you can paste them as a special object, and they will be pasted here. If you do something like with a Word document and you paste, or a table, let's say you draw a table in Microsoft Office, you try. If you draw a table in Microsoft Word, let's just say insert table. Let's just draw a table like so, and you put something here, DD, XX, YY, and you select this table and maybe you copy this table. You go to Corel Draw, and then you can go to your edit and you see paste special. Then it asks you what you want to paste. You could just say Microsoft Word document, and it has a lot of options, a few options here. So you choose this one and then it says okay, and then it recognizes what you're trying to paste and it brings it right into Corel Draw. This might crash, but don't worry, if it does, we're going to restart it again. It's taking quite a while to set it up. Yeah, so you can see this. And the good thing about this is they call them, I don't think it's an only object anyway, but it's an external object. So editing it here might not be possible, but the good thing is you could always do an update here, right? Or you could double click it and it takes you straight to MS Word, where you can do like an update. And if you save, it will reflect in Corel Draw again. So you see the XX we added is there. So that is practically how you work with this. So if you have like a table, you want to put it in Corel, maybe you cannot create it here in Corel Draw, you need to do that in Photoshop, in a different software. You could always do this, and you could edit from the other side and bring it into this place. Pretty awesome, right? So that's that for the only object for the paste special. Now there's one we skipped, which is sorry for the noise, we're getting a lot of background noise here. Now there's one we skipped, which is the copy properties from, and it's actually very interesting. So let's try with something. Let's select this shape and give it a red color, a red fill, and then for the outline, let's go to the properties bar where we can see that because it's selected, and just increase the outline by 8 points and have this like this. Let's give the outline maybe a green color, so you can see a red fill, a green outline with a thickness of 8 points, right? A red fill, green outline, thickness of 8 points. So now let's go to edit. Let's select this object here, or let's select this one here, and let's go to edit. Another edit, let's do this copy properties from. So when you click on this option, copy properties from, what it does is you're trying to copy properties from an object. You see, an object like this is called a vector object, and when it has an enclosed area, it's known as a shape. All right, so with this shape, we have have 3 properties. We have a fill property, that's the area that is enclosed. We have an outline property, that's the area that encloses the area that is enclosed, and we have an outline pen, which refers to the thickness of the area that encloses the area that is enclosed. Hope this makes sense. So right now, if you want to copy a property from maybe 1 or 2 objects, it asks you, the first question you choose at you, or the first option you choose, CorelDraw throws at you, is what are you trying to copy? What are the properties? So you can say, I only want to copy the fill, and then you check just the fill. You understand? You could say, I only want to copy the fill and the outline color, and then it copies that. It could also be like, I want to copy everything, the thickness of the outline color, and the fill, and you check all 3. And in this case, once you say okay, it turns into an arrow, and it asks you to click on where the object you're trying to copy a property from. So if I go here and click on it, it gives the whole property to this guy. So you can see right now, both of them have similar properties, same fill, same outline thickness, right? 8 points. So if you want to copy just two properties, you could do the same thing there. You could just choose to, you might choose not to copy the outline thickness, that's the pen, and pick it from here. And it just copies the feel and the color of the outline, right? So you can see, but the outline thickness is not affected. So that is what that option there does, called the copy properties option. And then we have the delete, which is to delete an object. You don't necessarily have to come through here. You could just do it directly with your delete key on your keyboard. And we have the duplicate, right? So when you select an object, duplicate is a very, very good alternative to copying and pasting, especially if you have the intention of pasting an object immediately. You don't have to copy it and paste it. You just press Ctrl D and it duplicates the object. There is this thing called duplicate distance, but we'll talk about it in another video, right? So when you duplicate an object, by default it sets a duplicate distance and then it pastes the object, so you can see that the object has been copied and pasted in one movement, in one action. So that is a very good alternative to copying and paste, unless you have maybe a different plan for your copying and pasting, right? And then we have there's also one interesting thing that the duplicate thing does, so maybe I should just say here. So when you select an object and you duplicate, for the first time you duplicate an object, while it is still selected, you can move the object, you can resize the object, you can do different things to the object while it is still selected. And if you keep hitting duplicate, it will keep the new settings and keep applying it to other objects you're duplicating. So you see that, right? So it does like an interesting stuff here. So it keeps the distance and it keeps changing the size. If you do only distance, if you select this one and press Ctrl D and move the distance a bit and then keep duplicating, it's going to maintain just the distance. So you see, it really does an interesting thing. So you might want to do something like, I don't know, like the Adidas logo. You just bend this, you know, like this, skew this. You skew this and you press Ctrl D. You just shift it a little bit like so, and press Ctrl D again, and it maintains the distance. And then you can just align them all to the bottom and, you know, slash. So that's practically one good effect you can generate using your duplicate. When you duplicate an object first time, while that object is still selected, you can set some constraints for it, and it will follow those constraints and keep duplicating. And then under the edit, we have the clone. And so just like the name implies, a clone is just making another version of the same object that actually borrows its property from that same object. So when you go to edit and you say clone this one, it clones it. Now this one becomes the child. So when you select the parent and you give it a green color, the child becomes green. When you reduce the size of the parent, the child reduces. When you scale or size, the child is scaled up as well. When you rotate, it does the same thing. The only thing it doesn't do is when you move it, it doesn't move actually. But when you do other things to this object, it actually affects it. And then one thing you have to know also is this, that when you stop doing this, when you now decide to change that same thing you're doing, for example, if we change the color of the fill here on the child no longer becomes obedient in that aspect. When you change the color, it can no longer affect the color of the child because you've changed the color of the child by yourself, right? So it applies. But when you change when you do resizing, it keeps that same energy. It still keeps resizing and everything because you've not altered that property yet. So when you come to the child also and alter the property, maybe rotate it or reduce it or increase it, now it no longer obeys the parent. So when a parent is reduced, it doesn't affect the child. Everything that the child is now is kind of like a bit independent. But both shapes are still linked together, and when you delete the parent, the child will go. So that is practically your cloning. That is how your clone works, right? It borrows properties from the parent. So you could be creative with your clone. You could do an object, trying to create an object. You just, you could be creative with it. You could create an object that has symmetry with your clone, and it could be really cool. Then we have the select all, which enables you. We have 4 options. The first one is to select all objects. Everything in CorelDraw is called an object. So when you hit select all objects, that's Control A. Selects everything. You hit delete, it becomes an empty document, right? So let's undo that. And then we have select all text. So you go to select all, you see text. So anything that is a text would be the only thing selected. When you find the text, those are the only things selected. Now let's experiment. So we have two texts and let's group them together. Control G, Command G, and let's go to edit and say select all text. You see that even when the text is grouped, it recognizes that it's a text and it still selects that text. Very, very important to note this. So whenever you want to select just the text in your document, you can use your select all text and it will hit all the text, whether they are grouped or not grouped. Under the select all options as well, we also have guidelines. So what are guidelines? Guidelines are these tiny lines you extract from the ruler that helps guide your designs. You can set them up if you want to have a margin, if you want to have a particular area, if you're working on a magazine, you want to have like a text area or something, you don't want the text to exceed. Because the good thing about it is if you add a new page, the guidelines are still there, so they can guide your designs, right? You can have them all over the page. And you could also hide them if you like. You could do that from the properties and from the standard bar. You could hit this show guidelines option and you could hide, And so going back to page 1, these guidelines, if you need to hide them, if ever you feel you need to select them or not hide, select them all. You go to edit and go to select all guidelines, and then they become red, which means they are selected. You could also delete them once they become red, that's selected, by hitting delete. And then we have the last one, which is select all nodes, right? But nodes refers to objects you're working on, curve object. Vector shapes, node refers to the points controlling the shapes. So when you're working on those points, that's what you want to select. You cannot do that to objects like this because they are smart. We'll talk about smart objects in another video. So you can only do that to regular vector shapes, shapes that you create from nothing, shapes like this, or destroyed smart objects. So if you select this shape or this object here and you press Ctrl Q or Command Q to destroy it, it becomes a curve object. Now if you double click on it, it goes to shape 2. And at this point, you could do edit and say select all nodes, and it will select all the points, all the nodes, right? So those are the nodes there. You could select one and edit the shape, turn it to something different. Under your edit, you could find and replace objects as well. You could find objects using the find and replace. It's not so much of a very dope tool, it's not a very smart tool, but it's actually something that you can work with. To some extent, it can give you the result you want, but most of the time it's buggy. And then we have step and repeat as well. So so let's say you want this one to move a distance of 0.25 just on the horizontal. Let's not do that on the vertical. Let's say vertical should be 0, and then make a copy, like make 5 copies of it and apply. See that? So it moves that. So just like this Adidas stuff we're talking about, you could do the same thing. You could apply, I think the spacing is not so far, so let's make it like 0.5 and let's apply. So you see it shifts that. So you can have one object and make a step and repeat option with it. But just like I explained with the duplicate, it's pretty much the same thing. You duplicate one, you arrange, then you do more duplicates, and it gives you that. But I think this one is faster, so anything you do that works for you is great. We've come to the end of this video. I think we've covered everything we can cover under the edit menu. So I'm going to be hoping that this has helped you in some way to actually get across or get over some of the difficulties you might have been experiencing as a newbie in CorelDraw.